Welcome everyone. This is Jake Litke, CEO of Mediajel. I'm your host today for another episode of Cannabis Marketing Live. And today we have Josh Lamb, the founder and CEO of High Rewards. We are going to be talking about loyalty and a bunch of other things related to that. So, Josh, welcome. Thank you for taking the time today.
Thanks for having me.
Some of you may or may not know about High Rewards. Josh, when did you start? When was the founding date for High Rewards?
So our official incorporation date was September 2023.
Okay.
Um, we had an initial angel raise and we started building the app in November of 2023. We launched nationally October, so literally a year ago, almost on the dot, October of 2024. So it's been a wild ride,
Yeah.
to say the least.
It is
Yeah,
not a boring industry. So that'll lead into my next question, which is
yeah,
how you decided or got tricked or were excited excited to get into the
yeah,
cannabis industry. I know you've got a background in traditional tech and loyalty platforms.
yeah.
I know that you were at Shopkick, which I think there's some carryover with some concepts. So tell us
Mhm.
how you landed here in the cannabis industry and decided to build your product.
So, yeah, exactly. I've been in media, technology, marketing for the last 20 years, in from all different categories, from fintech to retail marketing, and then came into cannabis. So, part of the reason why I got into cannabis was I believe there was an opportunity, once I got into the space with a company called Leafwell. It's a great company, you know, getting medical licenses. And I
I think
saw
that's where your name first came across our desk.
Yes, yes. And I really thought there was an opportunity from a consumer standpoint to potentially create an experience to really drive engagement with consumers. Now, they were looking at it more from, learning medical information and outcomes and things like that, which is amazing. But when I was sitting in the seat speaking with heads of marketing, I just saw how, and from my own position as a CMO, how difficult it was to market within the space.
Yeah.
And so, in talking to starting to understand user acquisition within the space for ourselves, but then also for our partners, and then looking at my experience at Shopkick, where we were working with Fortune 500 companies, right? The Walmart to Target to Procter and Gamble, Unilever, and saying, are there opportunities within this space to create a new island, right? So that's kind of where the idea came in was we need to create a place, right, under regulatory control and all of this that we can provide a marketplace now for retailers and brands to be able to directly connect with consumers. So that's why we decided we're like, hey, there's an opportunity here. We found an amazing pilot partner with Cresco Labs and Sunnyside, and they took a chance on us, and it's been going swimmingly. And now we've onboarded a series of other multi-state operators as well as single-state operators. We're actually operating in 28 states now. And we're available nationwide, of course, because we do have online options too. But what we've seen really is massive engagement by a user base that clearly wants this, and they understand it from apps like Fetch and Shopkick and things like that. But we've created a new marketplace now that, brands and retailers can now engage with people proactively, and don't have to worry about getting pulled over nitpicky things that third-party platforms like Meta and others just decide arbitrarily that, they're not going to allow you to market.
Yeah. Now, so when you were going out, obviously you had to go get some funding, you had to build the product.
Yeah.
Was it helpful to be like, it's like Shopkick for cannabis, and also, by the way, built Shopkick? Was that a helpful thing, or did because it is
Yeah.
you have a very specific way of explaining because there's existing successful use cases in other industries in the broader market,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, yeah. And, I also worked in a company for a brief time as well as they were growing, and I helped them grow in fintech. And it was a similar dynamic of gamification
Yeah.
meets a reward system, right? That ultimately gets redeemed for something, right? In
Yeah.
some cases, it's for financial services, in other cases, it's for gift cards. So I had a
Yeah.
really interesting opportunity to see multiple industries and how they leveraged a rewards marketplace for a specific outcome. So from a Shopkick, it's an amazing company. I love my time there. But there are also a lot of opportunities in general from the whole dynamic of gamification within kind of a reward space that I felt that there were opportunities to improve upon and take those learnings and put it into high rewards. Because ultimately, high rewards, Jake, is for the 21 and older community in general. It's not just cannabis. We're starting with cannabis, but this is about a larger consumer marketplace that has a lot of restrictions, not as restrictive as cannabis, but obviously things like alcohol, tobacco alternatives, anything that requires an 18 or 21 and above. That's
Yeah.
what we really are focused on building.
Yeah, I mean, our business is somewhat similar. We're focused, a lot of our business is cannabis, but we work in other regulated markets as
Mhm.
well. So now let's take a step back and talk about, and you mentioned marketplace. You have built a marketplace because there's two sides to it. You have the
Yep.
consumers, and then you've got the brands and retailers.
Right.
Let's start with the consumer side because
Yes.
distribution is important. Um,
Absolutely.
I download your app. Why do I download your app? What am I getting out of it?
It's a simple value prop. We're working and I'll talk to you about some other utilitarian aspects we're building, but it's simple. It's quid pro quo. As a consumer, you can easily find locations, dispensary locations, or liquor retailers, for example, with like Cheech and Chong, our partner, that's distributed at Total Wine and Benny's and other large liquor establishments. Um, but the idea is you get to see in this marketplace points, and those points are for visiting and making purchases, whether generally in buying anything within the store or it's buying specific products. Those have value. We take those receipts and then we give points to the consumer. Ultimately, the consumer then can take those points and redeem it for gift cards like Amazon or Nike or Starbucks or Walmart, for example.
Mhm.
So from that standpoint, it's also a very familiar model, to most consumers these days with, Shopkick being around since 2011, Fetch and others, right? So it wasn't too foreign for people to be able to pick up pretty quickly. And then I'd like to think that we've also improved the user experience a bit, just as far as, the usability of it. On top of that, and where I think we're very different in a traditional sense, and we kind of raise the bar on experience for the user, is the gamification element of it. The ability to do things like streaks and earn points. So, like Snapchat, right, where you open the app every day and you get points. And you want to keep that streak alive. So we have people that have done it for literally 200 days in a row, things like that. And we've only been around, mind you, and we didn't even have streaks until, a few months after we launched last October. So
Do you
people
have
love that.
Do you have anyone other than the people on your team that have had a consistent streak since you started the streaks? Is there like one
Oh my
person
God, we're
not
the
on day
most,
one and
trust me, we're the most inconsistent because we're just like running around with our heads all the cut off all the time, right?
yeah.
So no, I mean, we have other things. We have things like downloading and playing games, watching video. We're always trying to provide opportunities for people to earn every day they want to use the app if they want to use it all day. Obviously, the main goal and the main way to earn the most points is going to be shopping with our retail partners, right? Which they can check in. So you remember with Yelp, you had the old like check in. Well, we actually reward people for
Foursquare.
checking. Yeah. So Foursquare is our partner. So we've integrated Foursquare. We allow people to check in whenever they go into a dispensary location or partner location. They get points. When they make a purchase, they get a ton of points, up to thousands of points from one trip to the dispensary. And the beautiful thing is, they get that elevated experience where they get a bing when they get points. They see their little meter go over. They see how much closer they are to the goal. And all of that's fun, right? And what we provide is a open marketplace so we can be utilized by any consumer in the space, right? A lot of difficulty with getting pickup. Like if I'm a dispensary, right? and I have an app or I want to have an app. Their biggest challenge is retention in general, with not only the consumer by itself, but then trying to retain somebody with their own unique app, right? Which is
Yeah.
more challenging, right? Because the utility for that app is very limited to a consumer. So, it's similar. Think of it if you're flying on airlines, you always download the app on the airline you take, right?
Right.
So,
You have to get the Wi-Fi. So
yeah, it could be Wi-Fi, it could be anything, right? Just ease of accessing your boarding pass, whatever. But you really only think of using that app when you're actually with that airline, right?
yeah.
So what we do is we're essentially creating a rising tide raises all boats, right? In the sense that we're creating a larger space that can collect more people, keep them engaged every single day, literally. And then you have an opportunity as a retailer or brand to then reach out to them in those moments, right? That they're there because we have their attention all the time, not just that once a month when they might remember to use that app and then go into that store, if that makes sense.
Yeah. All right, let's get into some of the because we could chat about it. We could chat about apps all day and user behavior, but let's get into some of the actual potential benefits here. So,
Right.
last week this is part of a series that we're doing. We talked last week about, discounts in general. We were talking to Headset about what they
Mhm.
see in terms of the average discounting across the country being, I think it was like 23%, right? Just nationwide, every retailer they see, all their prices are basically reduced by 23% across the board, with some states as high as 40%. And I think Missouri was the lowest at 15 because it's a newer market.
And you're going over an average, so kick that up 2 times when it comes to new user acquisition or new
Yeah.
customer acquisition,
Yeah.
right?
So just like and of course, averages can be deceptive, but
Yeah.
in that sense, I think a lot of people are interested in it's very difficult to not heavily discount because it is the tool that everyone has been reaching for a long time. Even if they inflate their prices and bring them down, you've got the dispensary down the street, and they've got things 30% off. It's hard to sell product in bulk, not bulk, but at scale, and not have to do discounts, right? Because there's always going to be a big chunk of consumers that want to get some sort of deal.
Yeah.
If you're selling some sort of high-end product that people are coming for, that's a different story. But the still today with dispensaries, a bulk of the revenue is coming from heavy users that want coming in frequently and usually want some sort of discount. Now,
Yeah.
how does this kind of turns that on its head in a sense, right? Because you are giving people discounts or value or something, but it's a totally different vector. So walk me through the psychology of how you
Yeah.
take someone who wants to get 20% off and turn them into someone who's going to redeem some points to get value that they like, but ends up being less expensive for the retailer or the brand.
Yeah, so the larger goal, this is my more kind of egalitarian element of this, right? Is just understanding the plight of retailers and in retail in general, by the way. This is not just cannabis, right? It's highly competitive. There's a lot of consolidation happening, but it's not so consolidated yet, right? So you have a lot of single store owners and so forth. But then you've got some of the mega size MSOs, right, that are coming in and they've got the scale comparatively to be able to crush them. So I think what we've seen is actually very similar to your 23%. We see upwards of 60% off, for all purchases in their first visit, and then they tier that down over the next 3 or 4 visits. But yes, you're exactly right. And in retail in general, the issue is the discount downward spiral is eventually a lose-lose.
Yeah.
Um, because your margins can only handle so much. You're one bad quarter away from going under. So you have to, one, look for new channels, and that's what we saw the opportunity to do because we saw the discounts. So we said, I love the vector word you used. So yes, I say paradigm shift, right? So similar dynamic. But the idea is ultimately is to start to think about what are alternative ways to create value and drive urgency that isn't purely some big number, right? 30% off, buy one, get one, 55%. I get inundated by that messaging all day, every day. I'm sure everyone does that's either in the marketing chair or a consumer. They're seeing that happen. And how we do it, right, is by using a currency. You're changing the dynamic of it, right? You created your own push and pull element within your environment. So just to give an idea, like for new user acquisition, we're able to give 1/6 of the amount, but drive results than they would just purely being driven on discounts. So imagine the impact, right? If they can take that average of 23% down to 5% net on the discounts and what that would mean for cash on their end. I imagine that would have a pretty big impact. When you
Yeah.
look at new user acquisition, that's just on retention, right? So, they might be giving out 20%. We're giving the equivalent of $1 in most cases. So if you think of the average cart, right, of being, let's say, $60 and they're doing 20, 30%, well, we're only doing $1, right?
Yeah.
So, and by the way, the users love it and we're seeing the frequency go up. So instead of the frequency maybe being 2 to 3 times a month, we're oftentimes seeing 3 to 5 times a month. And the reason is because we're in front of them all the time because they're engaging with us in a bunch of different ways to where we are that subtle reminder, right? We're that eureka moment where they're looking at us anyway, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, I'll swing by and grab something." So
Yeah.
we create more of that kind of impulsivity opportunity, right? Versus kicking the can down the road another week. We can pull that forward. And they're not having to do it based on an email giving 50% off or buy one, get one or whatever it is. So from a user acquisition standpoint, purely, right? It's anywhere from, let's say, 150 to I've seen $300 for them to get a new consumer in the door. We're charging a fifth to a sixth of that typically. And for them, the idea is over the long term is for them to stop depending on that so much, use alternatives, not just us, but others that continue to crop up to decrease their dependency on that so that they can create more liquidity and be more aggressive, improve their product and experience. Now, the biggest thing, we can get people in the door. That's no problem. I tell them we'll drive results, and we do. But at the end of the day, a larger perspective is you have to determine what your brand is and what your strategy and your in-store experience is, right? To also differentiate yourself. And I think where people are more concerned about moving product and discounting it to get it out the door, they're not seeing the forest through the trees, which is the long term of like, well, why would somebody, if all things being equal, right? Level playing field. Why would someone choose my store over another store? Some of it's always going to be location based, right? How convenient is it? Some of it's price based. But then what? How good is your product? How friendly and knowledgeable is your staff? Like how well merchandised are you? Like
Right.
those kinds of things. We can't overcome that. We can get people to try and buy. That's our whole dynamic, right? But you have to capture them, you as the retailer or brand, when we do get them in the store.
or or at least not fail from a I mean, I say product
Yeah.
in the general
Yes.
category of the product experience, not necessarily like it's the thing that you bought, but the thing that they buy has to be good. The experience has to be at
Absolutely.
least not bad, right? Um,
Yes.
and I say that because if you look at some of the most successful point-based systems, right, like Amex and like Marriott,
Sure.
those are both systems I've been using for a long time, right?
Right.
And then circling back to the psychology, I think one of the nuggets here is that free, even if it's cost you less as a retailer, is more powerful than 20, 30, or 40% off, right? Giving someone something for free, even if the actual monetary value is less than what they would have gotten psychologically is just a human behavior thing, right? So like you take Marriott or Hilton or whatever, you stay a certain amount of money, stay certain nights, and you get a free hotel room, right? Or you get 2 free nights or whatever it is. I know that I'm losing on the math on that, right? Because those hotels are more expensive than the ones down the street. But like it doesn't, it's kind of a human psychology loophole of like I could give you $20 off this order, or I could give you this $5 coffee mug for free, and you will take the $5 coffee mug frequently, right? I'm just giving an
Yeah.
example.
No, no, it's completely right. I mean, listen, what we do is we really tap into the idea of progress and a sense of ownership. What you're speaking about, right, is and I used to do this with frequent flyer miles and so forth, is I'd love to keep up with my status, see how many miles. You become
Yeah.
kind of miserly like Gollum in Lord of the Rings, where you're like, you don't want to spend any because you would just want to see how high you can get the total, which we see all the time. And I'm like, man, they need to start spending these because they've earned $150. I don't want that sitting on the books forever. But, for us, it's the same thing. It's big in personalization, right? So some of the next iterations of where we're going is specifically to really continue to try to tailor the experience for the individual, right? Based on their buyer behavior, the things that they're interested in. So our goal is to make our app as sticky as possible all the time, right?
Yeah.
We want a reason for somebody to find value every time they open the app. And we do that in things like daily point when you log in. Like literally everything you do in our environment, we want you to earn a point for of some magnitude. And then for our partners, it's like, well, we just now have a new outlet that just did not exist before, right? Where it's purely results based. We don't get paid unless they get a result. So there is no upfront risk whatsoever. And then when we work out any kind of pricing deal with our partners, they have eyes wide open of literally what their result is going to be. Just in the last few months, we've seen an average of about $6 net profit for every dollar spent with us. That's on new and returning.
Yeah.
So you know, it's been amazing to watch because you always start these things with a thesis. You're like, okay, I've seen this kind of work. A lot of questions I get when we were trying to raise money is like, why do you think this will work here? And I said, well, I'm just going off of basic human behavior and like what I'm into and what I've seen are issues. And then we try to solve those issues. I think that's the biggest thing with any business is what problem are you actually solving for people, right?
Yeah.
And what we've really tried to do is make ourselves a no-brainer for both sides of the marketplace to, of course, they're going to use this, right? There's no downside. For the consumer, it's literally money they would never have gotten. And then from the retailer, they have a much better way of scaling UA at a much more reasonable cost that has tied inherent value like immediately. So,
Yeah. So you've got a good gamification engine. You mentioned
yeah.
streaks. Streaks are incredibly powerful. I listened to a long conversation. It was with someone at Duolingo, I don't know, product officer or someone, and
Mhm.
they went into great detail about the amount of time and energy they put into the streak concept. And as someone who's used Duolingo off and on over the years at failed attempts to learn a variety of languages, the streak does get you, right? You're like, oh, you're gonna lose your streak, and then the owl's gonna cry, and then he'll be sad. Um, so this it sounds like the streaks are working well for you from a gamification perspective. You've got check-ins, right? So
Yep.
you got sort of the real world interaction piece. Are there other and then there's obviously the points, right? You get the points, but the points is sort of a global thing. So you have streaks,
Yeah.
you've got check-ins, you've got logins. What are the other pieces to the gamification engine?
Yeah, so they can download and play games and earn points for playing games,
Like what kind of
casual
games?
games. So I don't know. Let's go old school. Everything from Candy Crush to Block Blast to whatever the latest and greatest is.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And they earn points there. They hit certain milestones, and those points actually go into our ecosystem that can be redeemed for real life rewards.
Yep.
Then we also have things like, watching video. We used to have other products. We kind of phased them out because they were not the greatest user experience, things like surveys and things like that,
Mhm.
that are kind of third party delivered. But we found that video and games are definitely the most popular. So those are the main ones that we're focused on outside of the traditional shopping experience. We've also integrated with Shopify. So a lot of our Delta 9 partners, doing the hemp and hemp derived products and especially in drinks and
Mhm.
gummies. We now can integrate with those online stores so they can do direct to consumer as well, directly through us, that can be directly redeemed for points. So that's obviously really popular with partners like Cheech and Chong and others because, you know, even higher margins, right? Not having to go through another partner to move their
Right.
product.
And taxes and all that other. Anyway,
It's
that's
a
a whole other conversation.
whole different model, but
Yeah.
yeah, so what we're trying to do ultimately, we have all these different ways they can earn at whatever touch point, they want to earn it, right?
Yeah.
So whether they're going physically into a store, ordering something online to get some seltzers at their house this weekend, or just checking in, and
Yeah.
downloading games and playing them at hopefully not at work, but
Yeah. Hopefully not at work.
I always say on the way to work you can earn points.
Maybe, well, hopefully you're not driving on your way to work.
Yeah, on the subway.
All
Yeah.
right. So let's talk about, it sounds like you've got a strong and growing base of users so that you have an audience. You've created eyeballs that are paying attention and paying attention because you've incentivized them to do so rather than I don't know, probably 1,000 apps on my phone. I probably use 10 of them. Um,
That's literally a studied fact. Like it's
yeah.
usually like 7 to 10 you use on a regular basis. The rest are just collecting dust.
Yeah, I rarely make it past the first screen. Every once in a while, something new will come up, like for example, when ChatGPT and Claude came out, you're like, okay, this is something I'm going to use. Okay, who's getting kicked off the first page? Like, what have I not used recently, right?
Yeah.
Um, but you've got an audience now. You've got a platform we talked about for retailers, right?
hmm
So you can drive new customers at it sounds like a really good cost. You can drive additional revenue for existing customers. How does this work for a brand? Like,
Great
the,
question.
yeah.
So obviously it depends on the state, right? So, Florida, it's vertically integrated, but in a lot of other states, like Illinois, it's required to carry a certain amount of third-party product within your store. So we're actually about to launch, I don't want to jinx it, but a huge deal that's a wholesale deal. We're already running a few smaller ones, but yeah, you can actually specifically as a brand I actually think long term that this is really going to be more brand focused as consolidation happens over the years, right? Where there's essentially a CVS and a Walgreens, right? Are the two
Mhm.
biggest players. Eventually, or Target or Walmart, there's going to be that kind of continued consolidation, in my opinion, as we go. So it's really building these brands and brand awareness because at the end of the day, I think, there'll be two winners for retail but then there could be a lot of winners for brand potentially. So making that investment. So for us, and one of the things I learned at Shopkick, and one of the main reasons people use Shopkick from a brand standpoint, like Unilever and Procter and Gamble, was about try and buy, like product discovery, right? Like how do I get somebody to try the new Dove, whatever, shampoo or soap or whatever.
Love for men. That was a whole big thing they had
There
to
you
do.
go.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So about product launches, awareness, try and buy. So that's what we're going to start doing, and we are doing, but at a much larger scale nationally with some major wholesale brands. Um, so, for example, when you go into Zenleaf, right, in Illinois, and you want to buy a Verilife derived product, we can help promote that product within the Zenleaf. And then additionally, for Verano products, we could be pushing those, in Pennsylvania in a third party store, right? But the idea is expanding their reach. So what people do when they use the app is they see the total value within a store. So we have all the stores listed based on how close they are to you. They can see, oh, there's 10,000 points in this store. They click into the store and they see either receipt values or the products specifically that they could be buying and earning points for.
Well, hold on, back up a second. You said
Yeah.
who can see 10,000 points? I didn't get that part.
Anybody using the app. So
But then, I
if
mean, they're
you,
available to get.
yeah,
Oh, I
yeah.
see. Okay,
So
so
you
it's
could
like
literally, yeah.
literally like a bank on the map of like there's points here for you to go get.
Oh, that's the whole marketplace, right?
Yeah.
So you see all the locations near you and you see how much they're worth. So it could be 10 points to check in, it could be 250 points. There could be 20,000 points in the store, or there could be 200 points. It just depends on what they want to offer to the consumer. So
And the
this is
retailer gets to set that.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay.
So we work with them and we basically set a budget with them on how aggressive they want to be, and we can, modulate it however need be. Similar to, real-time bidding, right? In advertising. So
Mhm.
part of that is allowing them to be in control of that and to say what they're comfortable with and the margins they want to try to maintain.
I mean, it's a great model as a retailer. It's, what do you, how much is a store visit worth to you? Is it worth, a dollar,
Exactly.
$2, 5 cents, whatever? Um,
Yeah,
Great.
and especially for brands, one thing that we do, and on the data side, that's kind of the next evolution. We were talking offline before this a little bit about it, but for wholesale brands especially, data is even harder to come by, right? Because they're selling, XYZ amount of product to third-party store, and then that's the end of what they know, right? For us, we're able to see exactly what people are buying in every store that we partner with. So the idea ultimately is that, retail brands like Savvy, right, can now see exactly what they're selling for at, XYZ store down the street. And they can understand, okay, this is what we sell it for. This is what they're selling it for. This is the velocity at their store versus this other store. So they can actually get a lot more retail intelligence about, you know, products that are in demand, what they're selling for. It can help with merchandising, right? And being much more nimble from a retail strategy standpoint.
Yeah. Now, for the individual users that you have,
Hmm.
is it a does everyone get the same experience, or is there any level of customization? Have you like bucketed your users into cohorts where you like that this person likes this particular type, product category, for example, and you shift things toward them, or has that started happening yet?
Yeah, it started happening. So that's
Okay.
that's part of the next evolution is continued personalization. So we have it a little bit more based on their behavior rather than the specific SKU they may have purchased, but we're evolving into that. So we've been incorporating AI quite a bit to help us scale, which thank God for
Oh,
AI.
yeah.
Just with we don't have a massive team, so in order to handle the scale that we've been achieving so quickly, it wouldn't have been possible. So when we first started, it would take us minutes of time to input data, so to speak, or validate the data, right? With AI, we could do maybe 100 in a day, and that would be an entire day's work. Now we're doing, thousands a day, um, and able to do it, right? And that's because of AI. Otherwise, we
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to. So that's been amazing to incorporate.
Yeah. So, um, let's talk about the compliance, because this is something that you're operating in many states. We operate in many states. There's a lot of different rules about what you can say, what you can do, whether offers are even legal, and is this an offer? Like, what does that landscape look like for a rewards program?
So it's a little different. Like for us with rewards, right? We're a little bit different than traditional rewards like you would think. We're not rewards in the sense that we compete with Verano's rewards program, right? Or Cresco's. Like they have
Yeah.
their own. It's like you going into Walgreens, right? And having a Walgreens account. But then you also have your credit card, right? Your
Yeah.
Amex. We're more like the Amex in that sense, right? So we we offer people the ability to earn points in any number of ways versus it being just there. Now, in each location, we're all geolocation based. We are also age gated. So, and we don't actually traffic any kind of product and we're not part of the supply chain directly in any way. So we're much more like an engagement platform than we are um, in the supply chain, right? Like, so for example, we're not selling product directly from us,
Yeah.
right? For, medical dispensaries and things like that with the restrictions. You can't redeem points for merchandise, right? In the store. That's a big
Mhm.
no-no. And so we've taken probably the most restrictive approach so we don't have to be so myopic per market. So we basically cut out. probably more people than we really need to, but just from a management standpoint, it's simpler until there's federal, regulations that are, one size fits all. So for now, it's allowed us to stay above the fray because it's like if you go into a cannabis retailer's website and they verify your age, right? Otherwise, you can't see it. We do a similar thing, but we actually get the age. And then from that standpoint, the rest is just earning points for engaging. So, anybody can use it, as long as they're 21 and older. Um, so that's how we get around.
So no, so there's no compliance headache, right? I know that, and I,
Nope.
we work with MSOs as well, and some of them have, for good reason, aggressive compliance departments, and there's
Of
frequently
course.
a long conversation about, what it is that we're doing. The age gating is obviously an issue, or in our case, we're
Right.
targeting based on age. Um, but that does make it a lot easier for someone to get through
Yeah,
digital.
we're a closed ecosystem, right? So where you have to deal with it, where you're going on various third party, outlets that are open to people a lot of times of any age, we don't, right?
Yeah.
So ours is closed and it's also geo restricted per state. So, you're only going to see stores, for example, within 25 miles if you're in that state.
Okay, that
So
makes sense.
you're not looking even nationwide. So we try to keep that pretty tight so that we don't have any spillover.
All right. Well, this all sounds very compelling for both brands and retailers. What does it look like from a budget perspective if someone wants to get started? They're like, all right, I want to try this out. What does that look like? Is there a minimum commitment? Is there a contract? Like, walk me
Yeah,
through the
so
onboarding. Let's say I got, Jake's awesome dispensary, and
it's
also I have my, my brand of edibles or whatever. Let's just say
yeah.
both those things. How do I get started, and what would I expect to see?
Yeah, so it's really simple. It's literally whatever you want it to be because we're pay as you go, so to speak. So we have recommendations based on different markets as far as what we would say we could project out of the gate, in the first couple of months of how many conversions, and this is what you could expect on the conversion results. But
Yeah.
again, since we're tied directly against dollars, they literally have to make a purchase to earn points.
Yeah.
We have minimums for that. The risk is null, right? So from that standpoint, we work with any size. We've typically, honestly, just from a scale standpoint, have worked with some of the larger MSOs that have larger coverage over the state as we continue to grow the audience.
Hmm.
Um, but we can work with single operators. But honestly, the bigger dogs are the ones that we're more focused on at the beginning because they have larger coverage over the state, right? Because our audience is literally covering the entire state usually. Obviously based on concentration to normal population dispersions.
Okay.
From a brand standpoint, we just do it as a percentage of sale. So they have it all baked in, so they don't have to worry about getting over their skis with anything. So all we do is, I don't want to give up any trade secrets, but it's very like one to one and easy to calculate what that payout will be. And then we ultimately use whatever that budget is of the delta to convert into points to try to woo people. And
Yeah.
then when they do make that purchase again, everything is 100% attribution, right? Everything's attributable.
Yeah.
So we have literally the receipt, right, with the purchase on
Yeah,
it.
because they take a picture of the receipt, right?
Correct.
Take a
Yep.
picture of the sheet that proves the purchase. And I know we've had this discussion in the past. You've got some intelligence around making sure that people aren't reusing receipts or fabricating them. Maybe we can get into that later if we have
We've
time.
had a lot of people try that, and the game with us is like it's like a whole nother level of fraud attempts, which is our cross to bear. Unfortunately for our partners, we validate everything with them, so there's no risk to them. For us, we've set up some amazing AI fraud tools that have saved our lives. Otherwise, we probably would have been bankrupted by people in like Indonesia with emulators,
Yeah, yeah.
and all things like that. So unfortunately, we're always playing an arms race there.
Yeah,
But
you
again,
always will. If there's some sort of monetary value floating around that people can manipulate, they'll try. Um,
yes.
on the point topic, we got a question from one of my favorite people, the anonymous attendee. He does
Okay.
ask quite a few questions, regular visitor.
Okay.
Um, what are people spending points on that they earn? So download the app. Someone just said download it. They could see a store. They could go 350 points. What can I use those points for as a
Over 100 gift cards in
gift
our
cards?
mall. Yes.
So
So Amazon,
yeah,
Dick's Sporting Goods, Nike, Starbucks, Walmart, Target, any of those.
and there's some sort of threshold. Obviously, you must need to get some number of thousands of points or whatever. That
We have a
trans
$15 minimum.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I can accrue enough points, and then I say I want to redeem this for an Amazon gift card or Apple or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Um, and then they can go spend that money. So it's
Jake, I completely forgot one of the easiest ways to earn a bunch of points.
oh, what's
My
that?
partner Rob's going to kill me, but referring friends. So when
Oh,
you refer a friend, you get 5,000 points each. So if you have three friends sign up, right, and upload a receipt successfully, that's $15 right there. So
there you
we
go.
make it pretty easy. If you go, Verano is one of our biggest partners. We love them nationwide. But you go in there, if you've never been into one of their locations before, you could get, it depends on the part of the country you're in, but it could be anywhere from 5,000 to 20,000 points. So it's very easy to make money. We love giving money because everybody's winning, right?
Yeah,
So we're just the happy middleman helping grease the wheels for everybody.
yeah, that makes sense. Um, I don't know if you want to share these kinds of numbers, but do you have any like you must have, excuse me. No, thought I was gonna sneeze. Guess I'm not.
Now it'll
Um,
happen.
do you have like your kind of power user, like do you have some people on your system that have gotten a lot of gift cards?
Yes, yes, we have. We've had people, I have to actually look at, we kind of have a leaderboard
Right,
internally
yeah.
of like super users, but we've had people over $500.
Really?
Yeah, like legit, like earning legit money. And they do everything. I mean, literally, they're downloading, playing games, they're watching videos, they're inviting friends, they're going into stores. We've seen a lot of amazing, it's really interesting actually. So, we see customers all the time, right? One of the biggest gets that most of our partners want is a new customer, right? The
Yeah. Everybody
that's
wants new
the
customers.
crown jewel, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so watching people's history with us as we're onboarding new partners, right? And watching them and their buying history at other retailers, and then all of a sudden now they're going there. And we're like, that's gold because you just converted somebody to your store, and then ultimately to show them repeatedly going back. That
Yeah.
that to me is the kind of result that everyone's dying for. And I'm like, all right, this is working, right? So again, any partner can be on our platform. It's literally pay for performance, right? So unlike some other platforms where you just don't know ecosystems, you just don't know what you're going to get, you just hope for
Yeah.
the best, but you're still paying. Ours is 100% attribution. So,
Yeah, we have, I mean, our core sort of offering that we've had for a long time, what we built our business on is on attribution.
mhm.
And more recently we've integrated directly with the POS and sales systems. So you can
Yep,
tie things to sales directly. And when we did that, we were actually able to manifest like an entirely different layer of information, which is what happens with your regular shoppers, the people that shop every 60 days or 45 days
yep,
or whatever your definition is of a regular shopper. Uh,
yep,
and it turns out that by staying engaged with your consumers, in our case, it's a push, right? We're pushing ads out. In your
mhm,
case, it's kind of a pull because you've got a
yep,
user base. Um, there's pretty compelling numbers for that engagement where you see, like you gave some numbers, but I would say as we're measuring this across the country, we're seeing between like 20 up to 70% increase in overall customer value between a combination of purchase frequency, sometimes AOV increase, sometimes AOV decrease though, right? Because if you get someone to come in 50% more than they did before, sometimes they buy less. Or
yep, yep,
maybe the reason that you're getting more engagement is because they're seeing more offers and they're coming in and there's some sort of discount involved, or in your case, it would be points. But it turns out that there's a reason that all the large brands in the world keep advertising to their customers and staying top of mind. I like to use the pizza analogy. This works pretty well with people, like because everyone has had this experience, unless you hate pizza, which that's your own problem. If you don't hate pizza,
Yeah,
you can
that's
ignore this. But sometimes you just see a pizza ad and you're like,
yeah,
oh, now I want pizza, right?
yeah,
And maybe you're not gonna buy pizza like that second, but
yeah.
probably sometime in the next week, pizza's gonna make it into your rotation of things that you eat.
Yeah, I mean, we'll hit people as they're driving by. So they'll literally get like a
Oh,
notification.
because yeah, okay, let's talk about notifications. So
Yeah,
that's your form of push, literally a push notification.
literally. Yes.
How is that going? I mean, obviously they work. There's billions
Yeah,
of
it
notifications get
definitely
sent
works.
every
I
day,
mean,
but
listen, the beauty of geolocational messaging and being an app, right, is you're always with them.
yeah.
So, on the data front, we know the restaurants they go to, right?
Mhm.
We know where they work. We know, times of day of the commute and things like that. And what that allows us to do is to build a better product to deliver the right message at the right time, right?
Yeah.
So it's fantastic. And we also have the behavioral, right? So how they're using the app also informs us of when we should message them and with what, right? My
Yeah.
goal, my goal is to never be annoying to the consumer. Like I don't want to over message them, right?
Yeah.
I don't want them to take the time to turn off push notifications because they're done with getting 27 a day.
Right.
And that's such a hard thing not to do, right?
Yes.
It was always a thing when I was a CMO at like Shopkick or others where it was like you're pushing and they're like the sales teams want you to push more and you're like you can't. You'll literally turn them away. And we've all been there, right? With junk mail and everything else.
Yeah.
So yeah, from that standpoint, apps give you a couple great abilities, right? One is push and the other is in-app messaging. So that's where we'll do more frequent of like, here's a new deal that's coming up. Push you also don't want to overuse. And honestly, we haven't been messing with SMS too much because people get really annoyed with that and you have to be very gentle with SMS.
Yeah.
And by the way, the filters are getting so much better, right? With unknown senders and all this to where you're quickly thrown into some automatic spam. I've
Yeah. I mean, I've
noticed.
got mine. I just don't have that. And like my text inbox, which some gets through, but
Yeah,
you can set it so I just don't see any messages from unknown senders at all. Right. So they
exactly.
go into the vortex.
That's only going to get better. So, from a marketer standpoint, it's even more important to be thoughtful about how you're messaging and the frequency in which you're messaging
Yeah.
because people will quickly tune you out,
Yeah.
like my kids.
Well, we've got a question here that
Yeah.
I want to get to before we run out of time, and I think this is probably a common question you get. I'm going to paraphrase this because it's a little bit long, but the question is the let's say a brand or retail, let's go with the retailer already has its own loyalty program, right?
Yep.
And there is a cost to their loyalty program in terms of both implementing it and the actual redemption. So they have a customer, they've accrued points, they come in, they're getting a discount or a free pre-roll or whatever, or pre-roll for a penny, it's legal. Whatever it is. Now,
Hmm.
there's a cost to that transaction for that retailer where they've
Sure.
lost some margin because of those points. Now, that same customer comes in, redeems those loyalty points at the dispensary, then also takes a picture of their receipt or checks in or whatever, which has another, albeit smaller, potentially monetary cost to that same transaction. How do you talk about that in terms of that not being cannibalizing margin?
Yeah, so there's always going to be a little cannibalization. It's a matter of how much and how frequently, right? So, for example, if you're ultimately decreasing on your end the amount of discounts to get somebody to come in because of using us as the lure to pull them in, that's where it's a big win, right? So right now they're giving 20, you said 23% on average. That's not including new customer. Well, if they move that down to almost nothing, right? That's where we could come in, right?
Yeah.
Easily adding much more value there. And I have to make this really clear. We do not compete with their own reward system. Their own rewards. And by the way, we're helping add to their own reward system because we're driving new customers to them. So we're bringing new people into their matrix. So again, ours is like, if you're a retailer, do you want to be on Amazon or do you not want to be on Amazon? Do you only want to deal with your own internally in your closed ecosystem, or do you want to have a new pool to fish in, to drive people
Yeah.
in? And ultimately, what we do is we help drive the incrementality, right? So, like you were saying earlier, we're driving the extra visit that wouldn't have happened on its own.
Yeah.
So, what's that worth? And we see that's worth 600% more than not using it. So it ultimately comes down to management of, what it's worth to you to have more purchasers coming more frequently and the trade-off with your own reward system and loyalty program.
Do you have enough data? I know that, it's still a relatively new product, only been out a year-ish.
Mhm.
Um, have you run into any real world use cases where a retailer has been able to potentially decrease the value or the cost of their rewards program a little bit by implementing yours alongside it so they can kind of say, okay, well, now I'm gonna put 3% of my margin over here into high rewards, but then I'm gonna just dial down the actual returns on my internal loyalty program.
It's a good question. I've literally we've never even asked because they're always happy about what we're
Yeah, why
doing.
do yeah, yeah, fair enough.
But what I can say is a lot have started to test decreasing the amount of discounting they're doing and the frequency, and that's been really positive.
Let's talk about that because that's kind of the
Yeah,
holy grail here of this whole
right.
series we're doing.
Yeah.
Do you have sort of concrete examples of where you've got a partner that has successfully decreased their discounting, but by adding the high rewards audience in has not had like a loss in traffic or customers?
Yeah, we've seen it. So it's obviously not been a very long time, and this is
Right.
fairly recent, but we've been seeing some really, really positive results in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
We've also been seeing it in Florida. Um,
Interesting. Both medical markets.
Yes. And also with Michigan's a really interesting one, right? Because that's a
Everything is
real
discounted into the floor in Michigan.
exactly. So it's even more price sensitive there in a sense. And what they're seeing is that the amount, so it's a very saturated market, right? In a lot of ways. And it's you would think extremely price driven, which it still is. But we've been able to drive massive results for some of the larger, I don't want to like name people without asking them, but
Sure.
you can look in the app if you're in Michigan and you'll see who they are. But the amount of impact we were able to make like overnight in just driving new activity and recovering lost customers, that's been a big one we've seen. And it hasn't been with 50% off like they might have tried before because that messaging died. Like that consumer is lost, right? Because they were hitting them with that messaging, and it clearly
Yeah.
was falling on deaf ears. So we provided a fresh way of reconnecting with them and drawing them back into the store. So we've seen that direct happen a ton. So we've had one partner go from we launched with 13 pilot stores, now they're increasing it to all 40 because they were curious to see, well, is this really going to do anything? Will our margins survive? Is this good, right? So they wanted to test it, and they've seen what they needed to see. We went from one partner in one state in 6 weeks to 12 states to every one of their stores after 6 weeks because they just saw the difference. It was just so clear. And then when they realized when they're paying us, they're like, we probably should charge more because they're like, this is a way better deal for us. And I don't have to worry about going to my CEO and saying, yeah, I just spent 20 grand and we got nothing.
Yeah.
So for them, it's going to be on average 6x the 20 grand with us, right? So going
So
to them saying, hey,
easy
we made a,
sell to the
yeah,
CFO.
exactly. So, and I know people are fairly risk averse, and this market is obviously because of the restrictions and basic tax write-offs, right?
Yeah.
You have to get ROI. If you don't get
Yeah. Yeah.
ROI, you're done.
Yeah.
So that's when we were building the model, Jake. We were like, no integration needed up front. We can, but none up front. No cost to you unless we give a result. And it was a pretty easy sell, like to
Yeah.
at least try it, right? So, yeah.
Well, congrats to you on building something that's working. That's always exciting. I was joking around earlier that, I think your timing's good. At where the mark. I mean, there's a lot
You're
of
a pioneer. You're a pioneer, Jake.
yeah. Well, I've got some scars from pioneering that maybe will never go away. But
Yeah.
we're still here now, and things are going well. But I do think the timing is good for where the market is.
Yeah.
There's obviously a lot more states now.
Yeah.
There's been some maturity in the companies that are still around and doing business, both in terms of figuring out some operational, things that work, and as well as I think there's a lot of more talent that has come into the space from other industries. You're an example of
We
that.
we've seen that, by the way, and I can't tell you how amazing it's been to see. I mean, because we have people that are really savvy, who really understand this, who have reached out, by the way, to some of the traditional ones kind of in our space, and they just won't work with them. So that's why we made it. Was like just
I
like why
mean,
you
that's our
exist.
whole business model
Yeah,
originally was like
exactly.
no one will service the cannabis industry or some of these other regulated markets. So let's create a solution for it.
Exactly. You're just solving a need, right? So that's all we're doing in a different dynamic. And we love working with you guys. I mean, you guys are amazing. So,
Yeah, it's been great. I'm glad that we got introduced a while back, and I'm
yeah.
also excited about some of the stuff
You're
we.
one of the literally one of the first companies I was introduced to when I came into cannabis was we're thinking about using these guys. Will you look at it? And I'm like, yeah, because you can't advertise anywhere. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been great.
Well, I appreciate that. Real quick, we're just about up on time for people that are listening now and people that are watching later. How can people get a hold of you if they want to? What sounds like is a completely no risk trial to get new customers and drive more revenue.
Yeah. So you can go to our website. You can email me directly or my partner. It's Josh or Rob at highrewards.app.com. And you can go to highrewards.app.com and we have a partner with us. You can just fill out a form. It's been really amazing actually how many users have gone to their dispensary and we get reached out to by the dispensary saying our customers are asking us to be on it. So that's been
That's a
pretty
great
dope.
goal. Yeah,
That's like the holy grail in
that
lead
is.
gen.
Yeah, that's
So
it.
we're not even paying for it. So it's just being there and being out there. But it's been fun and it's working. So we're just hoping that we can keep continuing to scale up even bigger.
Yeah. So, and it's just highrewards.com.
High Rewards app.com.
Highrewards.app.com. Okay, good to know. And should we tell everyone to send Rob's like really specific funny emails since he's not here? Or
Please,
yeah,
please. Yeah. He's crunching numbers for our partners, showing them ROI. So
yeah.
I won't give him too hard a time. I'm getting
All right.
the fun gig right
Okay,
now.
fair enough. All right. Well, Josh, thanks for taking the time. Again, congrats on building something that seems compelling, has got some legs, and is driving value for marketers in the cannabis space, which we love to see. It's been hard for everyone. So
I'm telling you, I'm feeling bullish. I feel good about it. I feel
good.
good.
Love to hear about successes in the cannabis industry. So
Yeah. All right, Jake. Thank you so
all
much.
right. Thanks. Have a great day, everyone.